You've been told your intelligence is your greatest asset, that your ability to think deeply, analyze complexity, and see patterns others miss gives you an advantage. But there's a structural problem no one mentions. Intelligence doesn't just process information, it generates friction. The same cognitive architecture that allows you to deconstruct problems also creates decision paralysis, opportunity cost obsession, and execution delay. This isn't a motivational deficit. This is a systems engineering problem, and the data confirms it. High IQ individuals systematically underperform their cognitive potential in environments that reward speed, iteration, and adaptive execution over theoretical optimization. Today, we're deconstructing the intelligence trap, the hidden mechanisms that convert analytical depth into strategic liability. Let me cold read your internal experience. You approach a decision, a career pivot, a business launch, a relationship choice. Where others see a binary option, you see a decision tree with 17 branches. Each branch spawns probability distributions. Each distribution requires data you don't have.
So you research, you model scenarios, you construct frameworks to reduce uncertainty. But the framework reveals new variables. The new variables demand new research. The research contradicts itself. Meanwhile, someone with half your analytical capacity has already executed, gathered real-world data, and iterated twice. You're not lazy. You're not afraid. You're trapped in what cognitive psychologists call metacognitive override. Your intelligence has constructed a decision-making protocol so sophisticated that it prevents decisions from being made. This manifests in 3 diagnostic patterns. Pattern 1. Perfectionism masquerading as standards. You tell yourself you're maintaining quality, but the mechanism isn't quality control, it's risk elimination. Your brain has conflated optimal with safe, creating a threshold for action that reality can never meet. Pattern 2. Overthinking as identity protection. Analysis feels productive. It signals intelligence. It protects you from the existential threat of being wrong. But you've outsourced your self-worth to your capacity to think, not your capacity to act. Pattern 3. Counterfactual obsession. Every decision carries the ghost of unchosen alternatives. You don't just evaluate outcomes. You run parallel simulations of what could have been. This creates a permanent state of regret, even when outcomes are positive. Let's deconstruct the architecture. Intelligence is computational capacity, the ability to hold multiple variables in working memory, recognize patterns, and project consequences. In stable, information-rich environments, this is adaptive. Chess, academic research, systems design, these reward depth. But most high-stakes environments are informationally sparse and time-sensitive. They punish overthinking. The neuroscience is clear. Research from the University of Waterloo's Cognitive Psychology Lab demonstrates that high IQ individuals show increased activation in the anterior cingulate cortex during decision-making tasks, a region associated with error detection and conflict monitoring. Translation? Your brain is running a background process that constantly scans for logical inconsistencies, edge cases, and failure modes. This is computationally expensive. It increases cognitive load, drains glucose metabolism, and slows executive function. Meanwhile, individuals with moderate cognitive capacity operate under what psychologist Gert Gigerenzer calls ecological rationality. They use simple heuristics optimized for their environment. They don't calculate, they pattern match. They don't optimize, they satisfice. Herbert Simon won a Nobel Prize for this insight. In complex, uncertain environments, satisficing outperforms optimizing. The person who chooses good enough and executes beats the person who searches for perfect and stalls. But here's the paradox. Your intelligence makes it nearly impossible to satisfice. You can see the difference between good and optimal. That knowledge creates obligation. and obligation creates paralysis. Stoic philosopher Epictetus identified this mechanism 2,000 years ago. We are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them. Your intelligence isn't the problem. Your relationship with your intelligence is the problem. You've built an identity around being right, which makes being approximately right feel like failure. Let's quantify the tax. Opportunity cost cascade. Assume a decision delayed by 6 months while you gather more data. If that decision was a business launch, a skill acquisition, or a relationship commitment, the delay doesn't just postpone outcomes, it compounds losses. 6 months of delayed market entry in a competitive space equals 6 months of brand equity lost, customer relationships not built, and iteration cycles not completed. If your competitor executes imperfectly but immediately, they own the learning curve. You're left theorizing. Cognitive opportunity cost. Every hour spent in analysis is an hour not spent in execution. If your goal requires 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, but you spend 3,000 of those hours optimizing your practice protocol, you're 30% behind someone who just started practicing. Energy depletion. Decision fatigue is a metabolic phenomenon. High IQ decision-making burns disproportionate glucose. Research from Stanford's neuroscience department shows that complex analytical tasks deplete willpower reserves faster than simple execution tasks. If you spend your peak cognitive hours modeling scenarios, you have nothing left for execution. You're using premium fuel for planning, running on fumes for doing. Social and relational cost. High IQ overthinking doesn't just delay professional decisions, it erodes relationships. Partners, collaborators, and teams experience your analysis as hesitation. Your need for certainty reads as lack of commitment. You're not indecisive because you don't care. You're indecisive because you care so much that you've paralyzed your own agency. Here's the systematic intervention. You cannot disable your intelligence, but you can re-architect your decision-making protocol to eliminate friction. Protocol A, the 70% threshold rule. Most decisions are reversible. Most risks are recoverable. The difference between 70% confidence and 95% confidence is rarely worth the time cost. Implementation. Identify your decision. Define minimum viable information. What do you need to know versus what's nice to know? Set a research time budget, for example, 3 hours, 2 days, 1 week, depending on decision magnitude. When you hit 70% confidence or your time budget, execute. This isn't recklessness, it's strategic incompleteness. You're optimizing for iteration speed, not first attempt perfection. Jeff Bezos calls this type 2 decisions, decisions that are reversible. For type 2 decisions, speed beats precision. Protocol B, pre-commitment decision trees. Your intelligence generates infinite options. Constrain the search space in advance. Implementation. Before facing a decision, create a pre-commitment framework. Define 3 possible paths maximum, not 17. Assign each path a trigger condition. When the condition is met, execute automatically, no reanalysis. Example, Path A. If revenue drops below X dollars for 2 consecutive months, implies pivot business model. Path B. If client retention stays above Y%, implies scale current system. Path C. If neither condition is met within 6 months, then exit and reallocate resources. This removes real-time decision-making. You're not choosing in the moment, you're following a pre-designed algorithm. The Stoics used this. Marcus Aurelius wrote decision protocols in his Meditations, predetermined responses to predictable scenarios. He didn't deliberate in crisis. He executed preloaded instructions. Protocol C. The execution audit intelligence biases you toward analysis. Counterbalance with an execution audit. Weekly review questions. How many decisions did I make this week? How many of those decisions led to observable action within 48 hours? What did I research that I didn't act on? If your action to analysis ratio is below 1 to 3, you're over-indexing on thinking. Implementation. Track decisions in a simple log. For each decision, note A, time spent analyzing, B, time to first action, C, outcome. Optimize for reducing A and B, not perfecting C. You're training yourself to value iteration speed over first attempt accuracy. This is how engineers work. They don't design the perfect system, they ship version 1.0, gather data, and iterate. Your intelligence makes you capable of designing 1.0 faster than most people. Use that advantage. Don't waste it trying to design 10.0 before you've tested 1.0. Let's integrate. Intelligence is leverage, but only if it's deployed correctly. In the wrong decision architecture, it becomes drag. The high IQ trap isn't that you think too much, it's that you've conflated thinking with doing and optimization with progress. Stoicism offers the correction, amor fati, love of fate. Not because outcomes don't matter, but because obsessing over unchosen paths is a form of self-imposed suffering. You cannot eliminate uncertainty. You can only decide whether uncertainty paralyzes you or propels you. The question isn't, am I smart enough to solve this? The question is, am I disciplined enough to execute before I've solved it completely? Because in the real world, execution generates the data that thinking can only simulate. Your intelligence is a tool. Stop using it as an identity. Stop using it as an excuse. Here's your intellectual provocation. If perfect information were possible, would you still delay? Or have you built an identity around never being wrong? Debate your stance below. Let's deconstruct this together.